Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling a question that I think, well, it sort of haunts a lot of us in this age of hyper-specialization.
Oh, yeah.
You know the feeling, you go to a dinner party, someone asks, so what do you do? And the expectation is you have, like, one clean answer. I'm a coder. I'm a writer.
Right. Pick a lane. You're either the technical one or you're the creative one. You're the data person who loves spreadsheets. Or you're, I don't know, the nature person who goes hiking.
You're not supposed to be both. The world wants you in a box. But today we're diving into a source that just completely blows that up. We're looking at a blog, it's called keyandmen.org, and we're looking at a snapshot from January of 2026.
And the author, who goes by Ang, describes himself in this. I mean, it's the most charming and humble way. He calls himself an old software plumber.
I love that. Software plumber, it's not tech visionary.
No. It's not rockstar developer. It makes you think of someone who actually gets their hands dirty, who fixes the pipes of the internet. A mechanic, not a salesperson.
So grounded. And the specific post we're kind of anchoring on is titled Notes on Gardening, Part 783, the air layering or marcotting propagation.
Part 783.
Exactly. But here's the kicker. It's not really just about the gardening. When you pull back and you look at the whole site, it's this absolute rabbit hole of hobbies and data and just rigorous documentation.
And that's what's so fascinating to me. It's the intersection, right? You have this rigid, logical world of software, and we're talking complex functional programming here, and it's meeting the chaotic, messy, organic world of a garden.
And this one post about air layering, it tells you so much about how a tinkerer's mind approaches nature.
Yeah, it really does.
So let's just jump right into the weeds, pun intended. The post is from January 21st, 2026. And Ang is talking about this technique called air layering. Now, I'll be honest, before this, I thought propagation was just, you cut a branch off, stick it in a glass of water, and you pray.
That's what most of us think. And that's called cutting propagation. It works for some things, sure, like pothos or mint. But air layering, or marcotting, it's a bit more sophisticated. It's actually a really clever way of tricking the plant.
Tricking it how? Is it like a hack?
In a way, yeah. Instead of cutting a branch off completely, which is pretty traumatic for the plant and hoping it grows roots, you keep the branch attached.
Oh, okay. So it's still in the main tree.
Exactly. You make a small wound on the branch, you scrape away a little bit of the outer bark, and then you wrap that wound in damp moss or soil and seal it all up.
So the branch is still getting all its nutrients from the parent plant.
That's the genius of it. The plant thinks, oh no, I'm damaged right here. And it sends all this energy and hormones to heal that spot. And because it's wrapped in damp soil, that healing energy just turns into roots.
It's like life support while it builds its new engine.
That is a perfect way to put it, yes.
Yeah.
And because it's still attached, it has a much higher success rate. You're not starving the branch while it's trying to transition.
So it roots while it's still literally hanging in the air.
Hence, air layering.
And he's got gear for this. The source mentions a photo of these specialized plastic containers he bought.
Right, they're often called propagation balls or pods. They look like these little plastic spheres that just snap around the branch and hold the soil in place. It's a hardware upgrade.
A hardware upgrade from what, just plastic wrap and twine?
Pretty much, yeah. Which is messy, and it's hard to keep sealed. This is the engineer in him coming out, right? Find the right tool to optimize the workflow.
So he's got the optimized gear. He's got the plants he wants to try it on. He mentions his basil and his red golden Penda. He's ready to go.
He's got the tool, he's got the subject.
He hasn't started.
And this.
Yeah.
This is where that software plumber brain really shines. A novice, they get a new gadget, they run outside, they clamp it on the first branch they see because they want that dopamine hit.
The instant gratification of starting.
Exactly. But Ang hits pause.
Because the weather, right. He says it's the first quarter of the year.
Correct. Which, for his location, means dry and windy. And for air layering, that's critical system vulnerability.
But why? If the dirt is inside this little plastic ball that snaps shut, how much does the wind really matter?
It's all about moisture retention. Even the best plastic pods, they aren't perfectly airtight. He explains that this technique is really best for the rainy season because of the high ambient humidity. If the air outside is windy and dry, it just sucks the moisture right out of that little ball of moss.
And if the moss dries out?
The experiment fails. Instantly. Those tiny, delicate new roots die the second they hit dry air. So if he did it now, he'd be creating this massive maintenance debt.
Maintenance debt. I like that.
Yeah. You'd have to be out there every day checking them, injecting water with a syringe. That's a huge time sink. He looks at the situation and says, the environment dependencies aren't met.
It's like trying to deploy code to a server that doesn't have the right operating system.
You can force it, but it's going to crash, and you're going to spend your whole weekend trying to fix it. It's pure risk assessment. He's debugging the environment before he even runs the code.
But here's where his motivation gets really interesting to me. He mentions that this technique is really popular for local fruit trees.
Right. Things like mangoes, guavas, things that are tricky to grow from seed.
But then he says, and this is the direct quote, "I'm not particularly interested in those species at the moment, let alone obtaining them."
He doesn't want the fruit. He doesn't even want the trees.
So why is he doing all this?
This, I think, is the key difference between a casual hobbyist and a true master learner. He says his main goal is to hone my gardening skills and enjoy the process of exploring various propagation methods.
That's such a crucial shift. Most of us are so outcome-oriented.
It really is. Most people garden for yield. I want the tomato for my salad. I want the flower for the vase. If the plant doesn't produce the thing, it's useless.
But Aang is gardening for knowledge. The fruit he's trying to harvest is the skill itself.
Yes. He's treating his garden like a lab. He wants to know if he can do it, how it works, not just what he gets at the end. It reminds me of a programmer learning a new language, like Rust or Haskell.
Right, not because you have a project due on Friday.
But just to understand the syntax, to see how the system thinks. He wants to understand the system of the plant. It's process over product.
Which allows you to enjoy the dry seasons.
Exactly. If you only care about fruit, a dry season is a total disaster. But if you care about learning, a dry season is just another data point to study.
Speaking of programmers, let's pivot back to that software plumber identity. Because this blog, I mean, when you look at the source, the whole layout, it just screams engineer.
It really does. It's text-heavy, it's structured, there's no fluff. The subtitle says it all. Musings of an Old Software Plumber. Night-long, tinkering with FreeLibre and open-source software.
FLOSS.
Okay, let's unpack floss for a second. It's not dental hygiene. No. FreeLibre and open-source software. And it's really a philosophy. It's this idea that code should be transparent, accessible, and free for anyone to look at, to modify, to share. It's all about collaboration and transparency. It's anti-gatekeeping.
And Aang isn't just using open source software. He's living an open source life.
He is. And you see it right in the numbering. Notes on Gardening, part 783, who numbers blog posts like that.
Right. It's not just a casual diary entry.
It's someone who understands version control. In software, you use tools like Git, and you have these commit logs. Every single time you change the code, you document it. Version 1.1, version 1.2. You don't just overwrite your old work. You keep a history.
So you can see the entire evolution.
Exactly, and he's applying that same logic to his hobbies. It's a database of his progress. It's update 783, implemented air layering strategy, status, pending.
It just implies such a long-term commitment. You don't get to part 783 by just dabbling for a weekend.
Not at all. And it also implies that he sees the errors as part of the data set. In version control, you have bug fixes. He's documenting the failures just as rigorously as the successes.
I was looking at that projects list in the sidebar, and it is, honestly, it's intimidating. We've got gardening at 783. But then you have notes on photography, part 226, notes on fish keeping, part 177.
And keeps going. Notes on programming languages. Elixir, Erlang, Python, Haskell, Go, Rust.
And then the lifestyle stuff, dieting, home improvement, meditation, guitar.
And then super niche things like AI and
Typesetting.
Typesetting. It's this incredible breadth. But do you see a thread connecting it all? Or is this just a guy who gets distracted easily?
I don't think it's distraction. I think it's a philosophy of systems thinking. Look at the organizations he supports in that same sidebar. The Electronic Frontier Foundation, the Free Software Foundation, the Tor Project, Wikipedia.
Okay, so the heavy hitters of digital rights and free information. Right. They're all built on the belief that knowledge should be free and accessible. And Aang is living that value. He's taking the ethos of open source software, share your code so others can learn from it, and he's applying it to the physical world.
He's open sourcing his garden. He's open sourcing his fish tank.
Precisely. So when he writes part 783, it's not just for himself. He's committing code to the public repository of human knowledge. Even if that knowledge is just, hey, trying to air layer basil in a dry season is a bad idea.
That's a bug report for the garden. I love that.
It is. It frames failure not as a personal thing, but as a community service. I found a bug. Here's the report. Takes the ego right out of it.
Which brings us to the sheer volume of this, because we're not just looking at one post. We have the data for January 2026, and the numbers are just Staggering.
They really are.
As of January 21st, the source shows he had already published 63 posts that month.
That's an average of 3 posts a day.
3 a day. And these aren't just, short little tweets. They're detailed notes on complex topics.
It's the commit often philosophy from coding. You don't work in a cave for 3 months and then dump one huge, messy file that breaks everything. You make small, incremental updates every day.
And he's doing that with his life. He's just constantly pushing updates. And if you look at the recent posts list, the mix of topics is just wild. It's not like he has gardening week.
Yeah, it's all blended together.
Right, you've got notes on Haskell programming, part 37, right next to notes on gardening, part 783.
And then notes on fish keeping.
It gives you this mental image of his day, right? 1 minute, he's deep in a coding problem. There's one called Understanding the Operator in Haskell.
And for anyone who doesn't know, Haskell's a functional programming language. Yeah. It's super abstract, very mathematical. The operator is about function application priority. It's pure logic.
Okay, so he's in that headspace. Pure, hard logic. And then maybe minutes later, he's writing a post about decoding duckweed or the blackbeard algae in his fish tank.
Or zebra cichlids. It's this rapid context, switching from the abstract digital world to the wet, messy biological one.
I feel like my brain would just cramp. I can barely switch from my email to a spreadsheet without needing a coffee break.
I think it'd be hard if you saw them as separate universes. But what if he doesn't? To a systems thinker, a software plumber, maybe they aren't that different.
How so? A fish tank seems pretty different from a line of code.
Well, think about the structure. A fish tank is a closed system. It has inputs, food, light, CO2. It has outputs, waste, plant growth. It has variables, pH, temperature, algae levels. If the algae spikes, that's a bug. You have to debug it.
Too much light, not enough CO2.
Exactly. He's debugging the tank the same way he'd debug code. Software is a system. A garden is a system. A diet is a system. He's applying the same method to all of them. Observe, hypothesize, test, document.
You can actually see that in the gardening post titles leading up to this one. Part 780 is Lessons in Windy and Dry Days.
Part 766 is Why Nothing Grows Under. He's troubleshooting. Why isn't this code compiling? Is the same logical question as, why isn't this plant growing here?
It's a very stoic way to look at dead plants.
But it's effective. If you just get emotional, you don't learn anything. You just feel bad. Ang converts that feeling into data.
So to bring it all back, what does this mean for us? We've got this snapshot of Ang in January 2026. He's got his basil, his plastic pods, his Haskell code. He's waiting for the rain. Why should we care?
I think the big takeaway is the value of this notes on philosophy. We live in a world that is obsessed with the final reveal. We want to post the photo of the perfect garden.
The perfect sourdough loaf.
Yes. We launch the app only when it's perfect. We curate the success and we delete all the outtakes. But Ang is showing us the messy middle.
He's showing us the 783 steps it took.
Exactly. He's showing us that mastery isn't a destination. It's just a really, really long log file. It encourages us to slow down, to document our own process.
And to not be afraid of being a novice. I mean, this is a guy who's clearly an expert in software, but he's humble enough to write publicly about his problems with dirt.
That humility is the key to learning anything. The second you think you know how a system works, you stop really observing it. Ang is hyper-observant, whether it's a type error in his code or how his seeds are sprouting.
And he's doing it all for the joy of the mechanism. Remember, he doesn't even want the fruit.
That's the core lesson. If you can detach from the outcome and fall in love with the process, you can sustain your interest for 783 parts. If he just wanted basil, he'd go to the store.
It's cheaper and faster.
Way faster.
Way faster.
But he wants to understand how basil works. And that creates this incredible resilience. Because if the air layering fails,
then it's just data. It becomes Notes on Gardening, Part 784, an analysis of air layering failure.
It's not a failure. It's just content. It's knowledge to be logged.
I love that. It's not failure, it's content. It's a very healthy way to approach life, isn't it? It just removes the fear of starting. Before we wrap up, I just want to mention one last thing from the source. That sidebar also lists a Now page and This Week in Review.
Yes. Classic productivity hacking, but applied to the soul.
This Week in Review just reinforces this idea of constant incremental reflection. He's not just doing things, he's thinking about what he did.
It's like a retrospective in agile software development. At the end of a sprint, You look at what went well, what went wrong, and what you're going to change for the next sprint. Aang is doing a personal retrospective every week.
Applying agile development to your life.
It's powerful.
Yeah.
Because otherwise the weeks they slip by. You get to the end of the year and think, what did I even do? But if you write a weekly review, you spot the patterns. You learn, you iterate, you patch the software of your life.
And you don't make the same mistake for 10 years straight.
It turns experience into wisdom.
So we've got a software plumber who teaches us that patience is part of the code, that humidity is a dependency, and that everything from a line of code to a Basil branch is worth documenting.
And that you don't have to choose. You can be technical and organic. You can cultivate a garden with the mind of an engineer.
So here's a thought I want to leave you with. We all have things we're working on. Hobbies, projects, maybe just trying to keep a houseplant alive.
We're our fish.
Or our fish. And we usually see them as chores or just leisure time that doesn't count. But what if you flipped that script? What if you saw your hobbies not as tasks, but as distinct operating systems that need constant tinkering, debugging, and documentation?
If you started a part 1 today for your own notes on whatever it is you love, where would you be by part 783?
And how would that change the way you approach a dry, windy season in your own life? Would you panic and try to force a result, or would you just realize, like Aang, that the conditions aren't right for deployment just yet?
Update the log, learn from the data, and wait for the rain.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.